I wanted to just give a brief discussion on what's been happening in terms of this, what would you say, apparatus of psychopolitics that has been inflicted on people now that Occasional Cortex has come out with her video, and the hysterics of the media. People are, they're going crazy, and I have this sort of sinking feeling that they're going to totally clamp down on everything that even sniffs the wrong way, everything that resembles even the vaguest sense of right-wing politics. I feel for the foreseeable future, I know this is a black pill, but for the foreseeable future, I feel that right-wing politics in North America, at least, are done. And I don't want to pull out a crystal ball and say, oh, this is going to happen, because you never know what's going to happen. But the sentiment I'm getting now, just from the tweets and from the universal praise and the weaponization of emotion and trauma, because that's the mental trap, that's the neurolinguistic programming, that's the use of affect for a political end, saying that if you deny, this trauma from Occasional Cortex or whoever, then you are evil and you are a monster and you are, invalidating all women or something like that. You are invalidating the emotional lived experience. You are doing the proper emotional labor of sympathizing for your political leaders. And, it used to be an older model of politics was the leader latched the people, the populace, on their backs. They are them. And it was their failings are your failings. There is this, I forget who pointed it out. I think it must have been Classic Theist. Or it was either him or, that said this is a reverse order of the, it was either Classic Theist or Gravantis, my buddy Gravantis, that said on Twitter this is a reverse order of the noblige, the oblique, what do they call it? Oblique noblige, that the royals had, the aristocratic class had, the responsibility towards their own people. And it really goes to show that we're living in a unique time. Sorry, the noblesse oblige, that's what I meant to say. We are living in a unique time where we are entering a therapeutic state that is so totalizing that now the therapist is the role of the mediator of your psyche and your affects, your affective drives and feelings and impulses and desires. But also this therapist is gaslighting you at the same time. And now it is the reverse noblesse oblige, where you are the one who is responsible to inflicting pain and psychological torment upon our leaders, and you are the one that has to go out and solve this uniquely feminine energy of hysteria. Not to say that all women are whatever. I'm not saying that. It's more of a archetypal sort of deal. And this is, if you read a really great book by, I'm going to butcher the name, Byung-Chul Han, Psychopolitics, Byung-Chul Han, Psychopolitics, Neoliberalism and New Technologies of Power. This is a, social technology of power. And there's this great chapter, it's called Emotional Capitalism, that really explains how the sort of this is a quote from page 47. A paradigm shift is taking place at the administrative level of companies. Emotions are being granted more and more significance. So you could say that there is no difference between the corporate model and the model of governments within the shared class distinction of the PMCs, the private managerial class. Rational management techniques are being replaced by emotional management. Managers today are leaving the principle of rational action behind. Increasingly, they resemble motivation coaches. Motivation connects with emotion. Positive emotion provides the ferment that makes motivation grow. Emotions are performative insofar as they call forth certain actions. An inclination, they represent the energetic, the sensory, or even the sensuous basis for action. Emotions are steered by the limbic system, which is also what drives where the drivers are seated. So remember the Blasey Ford, what was her quote against Kavanaugh? The hippocampus, it was some pseudo nonsense, but that was the intersection of like several different strands within Western neoliberal modernity, whether it's, mindfulness or the worship of science, but also the worship of emotions at the time that science reigned supreme as the key epistemological, the socially enforced epistemological tool, but at the same time emotions reign supreme. So, which is also what drives are seated. They form the pre-reflexive, half-conscious, psycho-instinctual level of action that expels full awareness. Neoliberal psychopolitics seizes on emotion in order to influence actions on the pre-reflexive level. By way of emotion, it manages to cut and operate deep inside. As such, emotion affords a highly effective medium for psychopolitically steering the integral person, the person as a whole. Now, my friend Alex Kashuda had a tweet the other day about how Western governments are actively shedding their own populations, and I said that, I was quoting some academic paper that I was reading. They called it the Thanopolitical order, and and of course this is like very woke politics, like this is Mbebe's necropolitics. He's talking about the Thanopolis, or the necropolitical order, the necropolis. So the necropolis is the city of tombs. It is the grave site where that usually exists outside of the city of the dead, I think it translates to. And I said this is a basic Thanopolitical order where now it is the government of over the living via death, or people who are consigned to die. So this is basic, Agamben's notion of bare life in the Homo Sacer. So now you are the one that inflicts psychological, emotional torment on our precious leaders who, fulfill all the requisite identity categories. And you, therefore, are designating to die. You are designated as someone who, not just to die, but someone who exists outside of the order, and therefore you can be done away with in so many different ways. And the language that they're using, terrorists, insurrectionists, seditionists, for people that, as I said before in Break the Rules and elsewhere, just like the most monumentally stupid, Q-tard act of going into the Capitol. Not even, I feel like, I'm not going to Fed post, but you know what I mean. It's just, if they actually did something, but it's, you notice how it's the symbolic order of things that are more real and more meaningful. And this is what I've been saying for a few weeks now. It's the symbolic order of things that are more real and meaningful than any material action against the political class there is. And the thing is, it's not even, okay, now here's the thing. When people bring up the Q-tard stuff, they're like, oh, you actually believe that people in power are like, they're into cheese pizza, they're into abusing kids? Yes, that's true. That's an objective fact, right? But because it's the linking up of other conspiracies that people are demonizing. So now if you are embody any sort of alternative epistemology, which I believe, I've said that conspiracy theories are an alternative ontology, an alternative epistemology, and conspiracy theories are valid in the sense that they are products of the epistemological uncertainty. Sorry. They are an embodiment of the epistemological and ontological insecurity that people feel in the information age, in an age where information's being corralled into various confined spaces and officiated channels. They're trying to basically get hold and put the chain back on the Leviathan of information in the internet age. And so this ties into how, the internet's being, corralled and controlled, and ultimately Web 1.1 ethos of like total final frontiers being eroded away now that normies have entered the internet's space. All this, you've heard me talk for long enough. I've talked about this at length. So anyways, psychopolitics. So now this emotional labor of our precious leaders, they are being, this emotional labor is being used in order to destroy any counter ideal to the operating neoliberal rule of the day. And you see this even with people like Michael Tracy, who got totally destroyed on Twitter when he had the mild suggestion that this was basically like a concocted emotional manipulation tactic on the part of occasional cortex. And you watch the video and it really, each syllable does come off as this she has to pull this stuff out of thin air. Because it's not enough that you have to equate your political enemies with trying to, destroy you, kill you. But you have to, drudge up this Me Too, sexual assault paradigm. Not to say that it didn't happen or it happened or whatnot. I'm not, trying to say that, automatically every woman is lying or whatever, obviously. It's just, the fact that I even have to say that is ridiculous. That's how degraded discourse has become. But it seems so mercenary. And for anyone who is not totally under the spell of, basic bitch media Democrat politics, it's really just, such a blatant attempt at trying to cordon off half of the country and create the conditions of bare life. And it's just such a, I can't even describe it. It would never work in the opposite. Say that, there was roving bands of Antifa and so forth. There was acts of violence against political enemies to the right, but that, the media doesn't cover it, obviously. Or it's local news, it's, quote unquote discredited. Like these cries, you gotta play this on Fox News, oh my god. Fox News is just as much controlled opposition, I hate to say it, as anyone else. And they're, if it wasn't, anyways, I'm not gonna get into that, but it's really telling how if this was the opposite case, even with the Steve Scalise thing, if he made a big deal about it, it wouldn't have worked because the media apparatus, the machine of psychopolitics, is not in the right's favor. So therefore, it's what it's like? I hate to bring this up. That little boy that was killed? And it wasn't about the little boy. I forget the name of it, of course, because you always forget the name of these victims. That's how it works, because if it's not a victim that serves a narrative, it's very easily forgettable. It wasn't the outrage at this boy that had his life ended by vicious thugs. No, it was the narrative that the evil, racist neo-Nazis are using this as a way of discrediting Black Lives Matter. That's what was the narrative. That's what's more important, not the life of a little boy. I have to look up the case, but the point being is that in this instance of a symbolic so-called crime, or whatever you want to label a terrorist act, these, what could have happened is more important than the, material facticity of the matter. It is more real than anything else. And this is the order of psychopolitics that has come about. And it's not just postmodernism, it's more of a, politics in hypermodernity. It's more of the therapeutic state utilizing psychopolitics against its own population in order to fulfill certain ends that a glance at so-called, rational, impartial, objective analysis couldn't give them. So therefore, it's the... And this isn't a new phenomenon, really. This isn't a new thing. Every great civilization in its decaying periods had this symbolic emotional outburst, that this sort of lament, especially from the voice of a woman, that justifies the new order coming in. So the rape of Lucretia is another thing that comes to mind. When wasn't that represent symbolic of the dying of the Roman Republic, right? So it's another manifestation of this, but it's more detached from reality. It's more in the domain of virtuality. This is how psychopolitics arises. And so I just wanted to give a quick rant on what's happening. This isn't, a scripted or serious video. I really just wanted to go back to the OG YouTube thing of, people just going off, right? So, subscribe, share, comment, YouTube algorithm, all that stuff. I don't want a black pill. I really don't want a black pill, but I think that it's going to be very difficult, and we're going to enter a period of persecution in terms of right-wing politics in North America. And it's going to be increasingly harder and harder to actually not just express oneself. I'm not making some, obvious, free speech argument. I'm just saying that in terms of the response, they're going to concoct even more psychopolitical events and happenings in order to justify the empire's agenda. And the empire is going to utilize the emotional, especially with millennials now that we're going to get a kick at the can in some respects of power. There are going to be more series of staged emotional events, and the Zoomers are going to lap it up like nothing else. And AOC politics are the way of the future, unfortunately, unless there's a substantial event or pushback or some unforeseeable catastrophe or something that gears people's mindsets towards truths that are more perennial. I don't see that ever having any currency, especially the way, there's this tweet by Dan Rather that came up about, these terrible insurrection and AOC is the bravest person ever, and it's just, to me, it's really indicative when the saints of the media, when they speak, it's funny because this is another psyop that the boomer has inflicted upon the millennial and the zoomer. They have instilled their own notion of media sainthood upon people. So no millennial or zoomer really was around when Dan Rather was on top. But now Dan Rather is the symbol of impartial American journalism that should be honored and respected. And this is our media saint, Walter Cronkite in the Vietnam War sort of deal. It's Dan Rather, he is the voice of the media that was good back in the day, that was just honest and just gave the facts. It's so ridiculous. It's what Jon Stewart is to millennials, put it that way. It's this psychopolitical operation that ensures this conferred legitimacy upon certain secular besainted figures that are now going to tell you that if you hold certain politics that you are evil and that you belong in a state of exception, you should be treated as such. So thank you. As I always say, God bless and goodbye. Okay, so I have 2 points of clarification. Number one, the rape of Lucretia was by Sextus. It was about the transition from the traditional Roman monarchy to the Republic, so I got it wrong. It wasn't from the Republic to the dictatorship. It was the other one. But that was, the Republic to the dictatorship was also represented by a rape of another woman, I forget. Okay, so this is the case of, this is by Snopes, and this is the contempt that they have. This is the, Snopes, again, it's another operation of psychopolitics to use quote-unquote fact-checkers as a psychological operation, as a weapon to program people into believing that certain sources are impartial and objective just because they're fact-checkers, and Snopes is by far the worst. So, was a black man charged in the killing of a white 5-year-old in North Carolina. Conservative, by Jessica Lee, conservative Americans claim the mainstream news media, apart from Fox News, schemed to keep the death of Canon Hinant quiet. Yes, it was objectively true that they tried to bury this thing, or they conferred it to the other narrative that, these evil, racist, white supremacist conservatives are going to use this to discredit Black Lives Matter. So they say it's a mixture of true and false. What's true? It's true that Darius Sessoms, who is black, has been charged in the fatal shooting of a 5-year-old Cannon Hinnant on August 9th, 2020, according to the police statement. What's false, however, there's no evidence that demonstrates a pattern of ignoring crimes on the part of mainstream media outlets, much as doing so to further predominated racial narrative. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just so ridiculous. If I even spend another second talking about how ridiculous that Snopes article is, I'm going to Feb post. So please like, share, subscribe. I just wanted to clarify it at the end here, these 2 points that I got wrong. God bless and goodbye.